Hi, everybody. Hi. Welcome to the first edition of Broadway Bloopers.
Bloopers.
Woo! Yeah. And I have my amazing friend and co-host here today, Mr. David F.M. Vaughn. It's gonna be so much fun. We're gonna be just talking all things funny and crazy and all things Broadway. I want to quickly introduce people that we have on the panel, and then we also know people are going to be popping in and out too that will be here to share stories. But we have the gorgeous Elizabeth Adabale, who's fresh off the Color Purple tour that just closed due to COVID-19. We have one of my mentors and someone that means so much to me, Mr. Calvin Remsburg. An insane career. You will know him from, of course, Cats and from Phantom of the Opera, as well as, of course, probably most famously, The Beadle and Sweeney Todd on the filmed version with Angela Lansbury and George Hearn. And then we have Nancy Wood, original cast of Evita, both in London and on Broadway, and the original international company of A Chorus Line, original companies of Starlight Express. She's been around and seen a lot of things. And then finally, Noah Rivera. So many things, including David Vaughn.
I almost did that to David when you announced him.
Noah has done so many things, including, of course, probably most famously, you've seen him as the White Rabbit on Shrek, the musical, on Netflix, as well as many other Broadway shows. So, David Vaughn, I'm going to open it up to you. I think that you are one of the most funny storytellers I know. I love a good story from David Vaughn. So, what are you going to start us with?
Well, two things I want to start. First of all, we came up with this idea because one of my favorite things about being an actor is when you're sitting around anywhere, maybe drinks, maybe not, and inevitably every single conversation ends at something went wrong in the show. It's the best. It is the reason why I do it, is when stuff goes wrong. So I was like, well, why don't we talk about it? Why don't we do like a fun thing? So that's what this is. The one caveat I'm going to put that we were talking about before is that we're all professionals. So if you hear stories of us being unprofessional on a Broadway stage, it doesn't mean we disrespect the craft or anything. It was a blip, a minor blip in an otherwise stellar record. So just want to—
That will never, ever happen again, right?
Never happen again.
Never happen.
Because as Calvin and I were discussing, when you do a show for a month, 2 months, 3 months, okay. But when you're like year 3 of something, your eyes start to cross a little bit. So that's when stuff comes out. So I'm just going to get us going. I have a couple stories I want to tell, but I'm just going to start with something that I did with Noah, which was Shrek the Musical. And while I was doing Shrek, I swung the show. So I covered 19 of the people on stage, which was great. And I was on for one of the 3 little pigs. And the 3 little pigs had, these noses and, wigs and these big fat suits and little things. And I'm in my quick change. And this is well into the run. And I'm there and I'm putting on my makeup and I'm putting on my wig. And I was like, well, where's my nose? Where's my nose? Where's my nose? It's not anywhere. And I'm like, where's my nose? And I tell the makeup woman, I was like, where's my nose? She's like, I put it there. I was like, it's not here. I'm getting all snooty, right? Because I'm a total dork. And she's like, well, I'm going to go get your TV nose, which is like the nice noses that they keep. So she runs back. She has the nose, have the nose. I go on stage. We're in the opening number and everyone's looking at me like, I'm like, why are people looking at me? And now I think everyone's playing with me, right? I'm like, oh, I'm the one on today. Everyone's making fun of me. People are looking at my face and laughing at me. And I'm grabbing my nose. I'm like, I have my nose. I have my wig. I have my what is going on? And halfway through the number, I'm mad. I'm like, stop making fun of me. Stop staring at me and stop laughing at me. I'm feeling very self-conscious. And so I'm dancing, we're at the end, bum, and like we hit this big pose, and then I see a nose fall to the ground, and I'm like, wait, my nose is still on. I'm like, what is happening? Go off stage. So what happened was my nose and my wig married each other, and I spent the whole number with a nose, unicorn style, right between my eyes that I couldn't see. And that's what people were laughing at. They were laughing because I was an idiot with a pig nose and a pig nose forehead. And yes, so that's going to start us off. Just a nice little family-friendly, a nose got stuck.
As was in the chat, we had our first Broadway blooper with Jeanette spraining her ankle in this is a Broadway blooper panel, and right as we were talking about Broadway bloopers, you like invented us, and someone in the chat was like, "Our first blooper." Anyway,
so that now let's start rolling. So of my crew, who wants to move on and tell us one of your bloopers?
Calvin. All right, I got
Calvin. There we go. Got it.
Okay, so here I was in Cats, and I was in Cats for 4 long years. It was a wonderful 4 long years. Somewhere in the middle of about the 2nd year, for those of you that have seen Cats, the stage is raked in 2 ways. It leans forward and it leans to the side. And they used to treat it with a special solution of this stuff called Ludox, which made it slightly tacky so that the dancer's feet could have some traction. So one night in, I don't know whether it was Denver or where, I think it might have been Denver, somehow something didn't go right in the mopping of the stage between shows. And the floor became as slick as glass.
Oh.
And we're out there doing the opening numbers, and people are falling down right and left. When they went out to do the tap dancing number, which is the Peaks and the Pollicles, everybody was falling all over Kingdom Come. So somewhere they made the decision to cut the Jellicle ball, which is the main reason you have the whole show, is for the Jellicle ball.
And no one would even, that's like, I mean, literally, like, people don't know the plot of Cats, and you know that that's why you're going to see the show.
That's right. And so at the end of the first act, we're just getting ready to start the Jellicle ball, and out comes Grisabella. And sings the end of memory, and act 1 is over. And many of us didn't even know what was going on because we were on stage and couldn't get the word from the stage managers. So we just slunk off into the wings, and that's how the first act ended, with no ball. And they did something. I think they came out and poured Coke on the floor, which is a good remedy to make things tacky, so that we were able to get through the second act.
That's amazing. And you know what's funny? So Ludox is the fancy version, and Coke is the kind of back alley version.
Right.
I'm going to tell a really quick story because it's a good segue, and I'll let it open up to my people. So I was doing West Side Story in Europe on a tour, and the stage was very slick, and we complained. Us dancers, we need something tacky. And they're like, what do we do? And I said, well, you Coke the stage, right? You mix Coke and water, and you mop the stage, and it's great. They heard pour Coke on the stage and mop the stage with Coca-Cola. So what happened was, in the opening number, we immediately realized it was really, really tacky, but the hilarious part was that it was like when you walk on a movie floor and it goes. So we spent the majority of Act 1 kind of laughing because, like, oh my gosh, it's just all the time, which is where the story should end. But then at the end, towards the end of Act 2, there's this very tense, dark moment, where the taunting, if you know the show, where the Jets taunt Anita in a way that feels very violent and very personal. And at the end of it, the music stops and Doc stops everything. And she has this tearful, screaming monologue. She's like, if I saw you in the street, I would spit on you. She goes to grab her thing. She wraps it around her. She's like, tell Tony Maria is dead. Sorry.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Woo.
All right. Who's up?
Nancy.
Everyone. Nancy.
Oh, wait. You're muted. Hold on.
I got her. Oh,
There we are.
you're on.
So I had done the original Evita in London, and a few of us were invited to go to New York. And so it was Peppy John and myself and my ex-husband. So anyway, in the beginning of the show, you know, I don't know if everyone's familiar with the show, but we're all going around the coffin, and every time you go around the coffin, we do one of these things, and you know, whatever, we go around. And as we have our head down, and as I'm going around, I'm looking up, and everyone is going like this. And they're going, and everybody was just like laughing. I thought, what is going on? And I get up there, and pinned to Ava Perón's head was a note saying, "Y'all come back now here." It was hilarious. So it didn't stop then. And then I was one of the girls on Perón's, and, you know, that's good for the Rainbow Tour. And so I'm sitting on his lap, and the guys had the newspapers, and I had one of those little, I guess like a jumpsuit that had snaps in the top. So anyway, every time we'd freeze, one of the guys behind the newspaper was unsnapping my dress.
Oh no.
And I'm like, ah. So I was like that. So now I've got my dress hanging by a, and now please note that the audience did not know any of this. And then I go off stage, and my dresser was there, and she says, "What's on your back?" And somebody had put on my back a sticky saying, "For export only." So we just had, it was really funny. Anyway,
who was behind? Was it the crew or a cast member that pinned the note on Ava's corpse?
I don't, you know, I really don't know. I honestly don't know, but it was hilarious. Just everybody was, and you can't laugh. It was horrible. It was horrible, but anyway, it was funny.
If you're ever unfortunate enough to do a show with me, one of my 2 big tricks is to slowly undo your costume behind you, just to get a quick unzip as I walk by.
I'll keep that in mind. I hope I get to work with you then.
No, I would never do that in a performance, but rehearsals only. Yes. Elizabeth, what do you got for us?
Oh gosh, how do I follow that? So I was just on the Color Purple tour, and we had just celebrated our 100th show. And in the show, I'm a church lady, but I cover Sophia. And so the girl who had played Sophia, she had never called out a day in her life. Again, we're like 100 shows in. And so we start our 100th show. We're like, and the way the show is structured, the church ladies are on stage for like the first 20 minutes of the show. So I'm on stage for like 20 minutes. I go off the stage for the first time. And when I go off stage, I see our costumer like yelling at me. And I'm like, Cecilia, like, what is going on? And she's like, Liz, it's time. And I'm like, it's time for what? And she's like, you're going on. And I was like, wait, what? So I'm running after our costumer. Mind you, I've never had a full rehearsal in this role ever. I have to give my mic to Renee, who's our swing, to go on in the middle of the show. The show is still going on. I have a pregnant belly. They can't find my pregnant belly. So they start like rolling up a sheet to just stuff in my costume so that I look pregnant enough, and hope to God that no one recognizes that a church lady has now become Sophia. So it was like the craziest 10 minutes of my life. So I go on stage with a sheet instead of a belly. And yeah, I mean, that show, again, it's the 100th show. So I'm thinking like, okay, I know this show already. Like, I don't have anything to do. And it completely changed. So it was probably the craziest time that I had. But it was so much fun.
Noah, don't you have a story about something like that with Sunny?
That's really funny. I was going to tell this other story first, like planned, but then as you said that, I'm like, oh, right. So I was in the Heights on Broadway for the last year and a half of the Broadway run. And I understudied Usnavi, Sunny, the Piragua guy, and they wanted me to learn Graffiti Pete, but we got our notice before I got to do that. But every day in the show, near the end, I would be crossing, you know, if you've ever seen In the Heights or if you know In the Heights, a lot of pedestrian movement, a lot of just like, you just walk across the stage, or you're walking and then halfway through you hit something and then you just keep moving, or like, it's really, you know, done really well. But as I'm just crossing the stage, I always locked eyes with David Del Rio, who was playing Sunny, because he was always in the bodega. And so as I'm upstage crossing, and we're always just like, hey, what's up? And we just cross. So one day I'm crossing And I'm like, what's up? Wait, what's up? Where is he? Where is he? Why is he not on stage? Why is he not on stage? What's going on? But I understudy him. So I'm like, he has a big scene coming up. The final scene in the show, if you haven't seen it, it's huge. It's the whole point of the show. Anyway, so he is not there. I go off stage. I'm like, well, let me go see what's going on. I run over to the side, stage left. I'm like, hey, where's David? What's happening? And then I get in there in the stairwell, and he's sitting there with the stage manager, like holding him almost like a baby. I'm like, what is going on? Apparently the scene before that, the way the theaters are, there's just like there's four levels, you know, because everything is built up. So all the dressing rooms are up on like third, fourth floor. So he was up in his dressing room on the third or fourth floor, and he can hear the show, but he wasn't paying attention. All of a sudden he was like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be on stage for the scene before that. So he starts running down the stairs, and as he gets to like the last set of stairs, he's like, oh my gosh, I'm running late, and he just jumps. So he jumps from, like, tries to jump the stairs to land and run on stage. Well, he landed and broke his ankle, hobbled on stage, did one short, quick scene, and was like, yeah, okay, and he finished it and left. And then he just was like white, and he couldn't do anything. So he wasn't there. Then that's when I realized he wasn't there. I go over and I'm like, what's happening? The biggest scene, the whole point where Usnavi decides that he's gonna not go. Like, what? Okay, well, do you want me to go? Do you want me to go? Do you want me to go on? It literally was like this. Give me your hat. Give me your hat. I'm in my wrong costume. Whatever. Like, he can't walk on stage. Corbin Bleu is on there playing Usnavi. The scene starts. Seth Stewart playing Graffiti Pete, and they're like, oh. And Usnavi's mad, and he's supposed to be yelling to Sonny, like, what did I tell you about this punk? Get him out of here. He's like, oh, Graffiti Pete, what are you doing here? And I was like, so I just, it was Andrea Burns who was like, just go. Not even the stage manager. Andrea, who was playing Daniela, was like, just go. So I ran on stage. My stories are very physical, so I always stand up. The audience is there, and I run on stage, and I'm like, oh, yo, and I try to keep my back to the audience for some reason, because I feel like they would then just see a body and hopefully not realize it's not the right person. And I'm like, please turn my mic up. So then I'm like yelling into Seth's mic in his forehead, trying to get the sound out. Anyway, so we finish the scene. I run off, and then I'm like, okay, do you want me to finish the show as Sonny in his track? But I'm still in this costume. So then I just go back to my track and just run my track in where I'm supposed to be. And I'm like, this is so weird. Where's Sonny? Anyway, because of that, I then had to take over Sonny for the next 3 months. So it was like, good for me, huge blooper, sad for him because he was done. But it was pretty hilarious trying to keep the audience from realizing there's some random dude who's pretending to be Sonny all of a sudden for the very last final big moment of the show.
Your backting is for sure the best part of that story. You just trying to like give like full back, like, hey, what's up?
Wait, no, give him a chance.
So I have a story that kind of tags onto that, because you were able to keep the show going, which is amazing, and that's the goal of the show. I have a friend who I shall remain nameless, who was doing Wicked. This is one of my best friends from college. And she was playing Nessa Rose. And if all of you, I'm assuming, are familiar with the show, that track is very episodic, and you have a huge break. And so, you know, she would go to her dressing room, which was all the way up at the Gershwin Theater. I mean, just like super far away from the stage, because she's got time to walk, right? So she was up there watching Netflix and chilling out, and she had not changed into her Act 2 costume, and she decided to take a little nap.
Never do that.
And she, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it's like the actor's nightmare. Her dressing drawer flings open, and there's a monkey in her dressing room. It's like, you're on stage! And she was like, what? Like, coming out of nowhere. And she literally, like, flew on the back of that monkey down the steps, down onto the stage, where she then had been made aware she stopped the show. They brought the curtain down, made an announcement. Due to technical difficulties, please remain in your seats. The performance should begin in a few minutes. Stopped the show on Broadway. Stage manager was looking at her like she was going to be fired, and they got her dressed, and she went out there and did a thing. And instead of firing her, they gave her, of course, she had to write an apology letter and all this stuff, but needless to say, her contract was not renewed.
Wow.
So I think that actually was by choice. I don't think that was because of it, but probably. But anyway, she stopped the show, stopped that show of all shows in Act 2. So anyway.
They never, that reminds me, like, because Wicked was my Broadway debut back in the day. And one of the stories I was going to tell is about how they don't stop the show for Wicked, if at all possible, ever. I mean, for any show ever, obviously, but like
a machine show like that with an expectation that it, shouldn't be stopping unless there's some kind of crazy technical thing or some crazy injury. But yeah, she just fell asleep and had to stop the show. Woo!
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Noah.
Oh, just another story about Wicked of when an Elphaba got really sick and had to, how they don't stop the show. Julia Murney was playing Elphaba, and she hurt her back, and she was trying to keep going. She was like, I'm just going to take a muscle relaxer and I'll be fine, or something, whatever she was doing, because she's incredible.
She's amazing.
She's amazing. She's so amazing. So she was on stage, and after the first scene or two, she was just like, oh my God, I'm not feeling well. I'm just not feeling well. And they're like, well, okay. So they just start getting her standby ready just in case. So her standby is getting all green and all everything. And long story short, she sings The Wizard and I and kills it. Julie just, The Wizard and I, just amazing, kills it. And then as she's walking off stage, I'm already off stage on stage right, and we're about to enter for the school scene. She literally walks off, puts on a white jacket, and walks right back on for the next scene. It's what's supposed to happen. She walked off just after blowing it out of the water and just was like, ugh, and just like collapses like into somebody's arms, and they're like, oh my God, are you okay? And she goes to the stairwell, and already standing there is the standby in all green, all in the white jacket, ready to go, and everything just keeps moving, and she walks right on stage, and just show just keeps going. The audience had no idea, and there probably were some people like, she sounds a little different. Is that? Oh, all right. But like, I know people who just were like, I had no idea.
And that happens all the time in Wicked. Alvin, I see your hand up. Calvin, you're not muted. There you go.
There I am. Okay. Stopping the show is the worst possible thing that can happen, because if you go overtime, even if your show is one of those long shows that tends to put you past the 3-hour mark, you have orchestra overtime, stage hand overtime. It can be the worst possible thing. So here's my story about that. One night in Phantom of the Opera, and for those of you who have seen Phantom of the Opera, you know that when they go into the Phantom's lair, there are 247 trapdoors that open up. And candelabras come out of the floor, little candles come out of the floor, all sorts of stuff comes out of the floor. At the end of that scene one night, the stage goes dark and they start the music to the manager scene, which is when I'm supposed to come out holding a newspaper and going to start the manager scene, which I normally do. So as the music starts to play, I hear the most god-awful cranking and clamoring and things breaking and just horribleness. And all of a sudden, people are laying all over the floor, and I can see barely onto the stage because it's pitch black out there. And all of the trapdoors are stuck open, and the candelabras are lodged in their trap, and they can't get down. And so I'm supposed to walk out and around and get my position at the desk. I couldn't get out there. There were people laying on the floor. The trapdoors were all open. It was pitch black. So the lights come up and my music is there and I am not on stage. And I'm standing right in the wing, but I can't get out. And there was nothing to be done. They played 2 measures of music and then they stopped, brought the curtain down. The stage manager went out and said, ladies and gentlemen, we've had a technical issue. They got us all together and said, we're going to continue trying to get the trapdoors open, but you're going to have to go out there and continue the show. I said, do we just play it downstage? What do we do? And they said, just do the best you can. So we're like walking around trying not to fall in traps that are
literally
open.
not giving you an answer, just going,
No,
just do the best
no
you
answer.
can.
They just wanted to get the damn show started. So they got it started and out we went. And you know, they gave me hell for not, they blamed me, the stage manager blamed me for stopping the show. And I said, hello, how would you have done it? I couldn't have gotten on there. I couldn't get on stage. And then Equity luckily took my position that, you know, with the safe and sanitary clause, if you do not feel safe, you do not have to go on. Amen. And I said, walking onto a black floor with no lights and 147 trapdoors open is the definition of unsafe.
Amen.
So it all got resolved and everybody apologized to everybody, but it was a scary but funny moment.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Gretchen and Biddy, I hear you guys have a story.
Yes, we do. So I was the associate director and associate choreographer on Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the tour. So if you guys are all familiar with the claymation, it's just the exact thing from the film put on stage. So during one of the tours, I think it was 2015, one of our Mrs. Donners had booked another show. So she had to leave the tour mid-tour, and they came to me and asked me, do you want to teach someone else really quickly, or would you just want to go and finish the tour yourself? Because I was the exact same body type and everything for that part. So I was like, you know, I really don't feel like teaching it again. I'll just go and do it. So I ended up going on the tour. I think it was my second time in, we were in Pittsburgh. Dolly is a puppet, so I had her ready to go, and it's called the Island of Misfit Toys, that moment when Rudolph and Yukon and Hermie come to the island and they're about to see all these misfit toys come out, right? Well, Dolly is the first one to peek out of this iceberg. Her head has to peek out first, and then her body slowly, you have to get her on top of the iceberg and peek her out on the iceberg. So I do that, and I go, we're on the island of misfit toys here, and I get her on the iceberg, and Rudolph and Hermie and Yukon, their backs to the audience, so they're facing upstage towards us, and Rudolph and Hermie and Yukon all are looking at me, dying of laughter, dying. Like, and I'm supposed to be the only female on stage singing. So while they're laughing at me, I'm like, we're on the island of misfit toys. And I don't know what's going on for a long time. They end up like, because they can't turn around, they are like almost crying of laughter because both of her legs
This is a David Vaughn moment.
Both of Dolly's legs were out of the sockets and just like flopping around. And I had no idea. Dolly was just like kind of like dead. And this is a children's show. So a lot of children are in the audience. And as soon as I learned like what's happening, the feet are just hanging on by a string. So they're just like laying, like flopping down. I lose it. I start crying of laughter. I have to turn up stage and just kind of slowly melt down back into the ice box because it was just a travesty. So
gotta love a good prop that failed.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But that stuff. My wife has another one too. My wife has another one too. Hey guys.
This one.
So Hair Tour, I feel like that's where I get all my best stories. But Hair Tour, John Wilkes Booth is played by one of the usually male ensemble tracks, but as the only swing and an onstage swing, and I was and a female swing, I was first covered for John Wilkes Booth. So Abraham Lincoln's singing and she's on stage, and of course I'm getting the jacket on, and the only thing to transform into John Wilkes Booth is you're given a gun, you have to crawl through the audience, and you have a jacket and a mustache, and that's it. So it's already terrifying because you're crawling through a theater with a gun in your hand, like shushing audience members. So it's like how people didn't like think that I was actually gonna attack them, I'm not sure. Maybe it was like the look of the gun or whatever. But anyway, so at some point, I'm not sure when it happened, the mustache falls off. So now I'm just like me in a jacket and a gun crawling through the audience while Abraham Lincoln is singing on stage. And I have to crawl up onto like a ladder and then go bang and shoot Abraham Lincoln.
So I was like, okay, I have to improvise this. I have to at least be somewhat John Wilkes Boothy. My hair was long enough to grab, and I was so sweaty. And I'm already in this jacket, right? So like, it's super hot, and hair is such an athletic show. So I'm drenched, and I already look like a crazy person in the audience with this gun, and I'm like shaking and like shushing people. I grab my hair, and I put it on my face, and it turns into my mustache, and it sticks throughout the rest of the number. And I crawl on stage with my hair on my face, balancing there, and I go bang, and then I run off.
Appropriate.
Way to make it happen, Biddy. Way to make it happen. That's amazing.
Don't know where the mustache went.
And also, like, how in today's world can we have people crawling through an audience with a gun?
I know. That was 2013.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Unbelievable. Okay, I'm going to throw it real quick. We have Robert Yacko, who's joined us from Fiddler Tour. He has some great Sid Charisse stories, too. Robert.
Hey there.
A good story.
Hi, everybody. Am I unmuted? I hope so.
You are.
You know, since I started in the late 1800s, this is Fiddler with Jerome Robbins, Herschel Bernardi, Lizzie Larson was our Kabbalah. I mean, an amazing group. We did 3 tours. The second one played Broadway. They brought back Maria Karnilova. At any rate, I have so many stories, but I'll stick to the ones I was part of. I was a double understudy for Perchik and Fiedka. I went on a lot. But halfway through the first tour, they asked if I would mind if one of the younger dancers, who had a great voice and was a really sweet kid, could do the tenor solo, because he had, and I said, yeah, sure, what are you gonna do? You know, it was my first tour, what am I gonna do, say no? At any rate, when we finally went on, I did the scenes as Fiedka, he did the tenor solo in the inn, and we all danced, and I did the knee curls. So, we went on a Saturday night, everything went great. But Tim was a party boy, and the next day he probably didn't eat. So when we did the matinee, he got up to sing the high G, and as he fell off of it, he went, oh, za, and he didn't even get the za out. He passed out and slid down the hard back wall into my lap, and I was holding on to him like a giant puppet, and I jumped in and sang the rest of the solo. And as I got to the end of the solo, he sort of woke up, freaked out, looked around, jumped down, and did the dance with Tevye, and then ran off and fell apart. The whole time, Herschel Bernardi is looking at him like, huh? So that was that kind of fun little thing. And the Sid Charisse thing was not in performance, but I mean, when you have a chance to dance with her, it wasn't a musical. It was the Abe Burrows play, Cactus Flower. We were doing it in Summerstock. And because my character dances with her in the second act, they made it a number. Never mind that it was terrifying learning it just from her in a dance studio, but she was a sweetheart. And basically it was a jazz disco pas de deux. And at the end, she would get up on a cocktail table, swing her mink stole, toss it, jump into my arms in a cradle lift. I'd spin her around, let her down slowly, all is well. The night of tech dress, in her Bob Mackie gown slid up to here, the only thing we hadn't used were the lights. So as the music started, the lights went dimmer than we expected, and she leaned into me and said, stay close to the table, I don't see too well. Now, we had no problems, but I had a minor heart attack for about 5 minutes until we got to the part where she jumped into my arms. I have lots more Fiddler stories, but I'm sure there are other people with other stuff here. I don't want to take up your time.
No, oh, you're muted, TJ.
Oops, hi. I said those were awesome, Robert. I love a good Sid Charisse story. That's what an icon, and how cool that you got to dance with her. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, cool. So David.
Yeah, I was just gonna tell, this is a tangential story, so I was not in this performance or this show, but it's an important story to tell. And I was going off of the Wicked thing. So I have a friend, I will make her nameless because she would be furious I was telling this story. She went into the show, and she was a swing, and she's very excited. And her very first time on, she was in the ensemble. And if you know the show, when they go to Oz, there are these big heads, these big fat suits, and they've got these big kind of accordion heads that come up, and they do who's, da, 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 right? And so they come out in these big fat suits, and then you have to lift your neck up really high, and basically it blocks, so you can't see anything. You kind of spin your head around, you put it back down, you run off stage, right? So she's in one of these costumes, and she goes out on stage, and she says it's already hard to see with these things on. She goes up, she lifts her head up, she goes, ooh, isn't it wonderful? And she can't get it down. And she's like, okay, I'm cool, everything's fine. Let me just try it this way. Okay, can't get it down. Music is moving on. She knows has to run off stage. So she's like, great. I'm just gonna run off stage with my head up because I can fix this off stage. So she goes to turn, and she immediately is like, I don't know where I am. You know those feelings where you're just like, I don't know which way I'm going. So she starts to walk, and she suddenly realizes, I don't know which way I'm going. And the Wicked stage at the very, very bottom is like these little gears, and there's this like step down to kind of another little trapdoor area, right at the apron of the stage. And she said she started walking. She thought she was going off stage, and then she took one step down, and she realized, oh my God, I'm at the front of the stage. I've just taken one step off, one more step, and I'm in the audience. The music is now over. We are done with this section. Elphaba and the other one are singing off stage, and she doesn't know what to do. She's panicked. She can't see. Her hands are still up in the air like this. So she said she didn't know what to do. So she was at the very front of the stage, and she said, I just decided to sit down and wait for somebody to come get me. So she just sat at the edge of the stage with her big head up in the air while the other two are singing, and she's just kind of like, And she said like an ensemble person just kind of came out and grabbed her and just kind of like, da-da-da-da-da-da, off stage. But the feeling of like, I don't know where I am. I need an adult to come find me. I'm just going to sit here and wait. And to the audience perspective, this like big head just sitting at the front of the stage. Oh, and this was her first time on in a Broadway. It was her Broadway debut.
Oh.
So, God bless.
That's the way to do it.
I mean, that's the only way to do it. You gotta just kind of rip the Band-Aid off a little bit.
There was a question in the chat that actually I was on tour. It was about, are there fines associated with making mistakes and stuff on stage? And there are for certain things, missing entrances and stuff like that. I was on tour. I was in almost my eighth month of doing Grease. I had Ramalama for far too long, and I definitely was my first time on a tour. And so I got to a point where, when I first got there, I was like ready early all the time. And then by the time, you get later in your run, you know exactly when you need to do your hair, exactly when, just so that, and I was like the jerk that would like slide into places like exactly like the overture would start right when I just had it timed out, and the stage managers always would be like, oh. And like there was a time where I was standing in the wings waiting for my scene. I actually wasn't late. I was like waiting to make an entrance, and I was by myself, and I'm listening to the scene, and I was like, why do I feel like I've never heard this scene before? I was like, this is so bizarre. And I was like waiting for my cue line, and I was like, this is really funny. How have I not heard this scene before? And I was kind of laughing because I was like, this is really entertaining. And then I see on the other side of the stage, like the ASM doing like this. And I was like, what's happening? And I still wasn't getting it. And all of a sudden, like I feel from behind me, I get shoved on stage. And I was like, and I was supposed to come running on stage with a weapon and like screaming and like, ah! Like to scare them, like I was ready for this rumble. Very deep moment in Grease. And they had been improvising for a minute and a half, and I had no idea that I had missed my cue and just was in the wings waiting for it.
That's why you had never heard that scene before.
That is exactly right. And so I had been told if I did that again, I was going to be fined. They were gracious enough to let me have a rookie first mistake, but there are fines associated with things like that. Wow. I'm certain my friend who stopped the show on Broadway of Wicked got a fine. I am certain of it. Yes. A hefty one, I would imagine. So
did Calvin, did you want to say a story about the Actors Theater of Louisville, I believe?
Yes, this is a very funny story. I had a friend who worked at the Actors Theater of Louisville, and they had a game that they would play occasionally where you would have to work in a certain line into the script during the course of the evening. And every character in the play had to say a certain word. And the story that I heard was the word was mincing dandy. So you had to, like, if you were to say, I am going to the store, you would say, I'm going to the store, you mincing dandy, and throw it in. And every character in the play had to do it. And you had to do it in such a way that the audience wouldn't catch on that it was not supposed to be in the script. And if you didn't get it in, you had to take everybody else out to dinner. Well, this one night, this one actor managed to get it in, but also threw in a curse word that wasn't in the script. And that was, boom, the end of that game. They never played that again. They couldn't play it anymore after that.
I did an opera once where they did that game, and the word was, I did Candide for the Dayton Opera, and the word was Skittles, and we all got in trouble. But anyway, sorry, TJ.
I was gonna say I had similar, but it was with a prop. It was in My Fair Lady, and we had to figure out how to pass a kumquat around on stage because that was in the show, and we were like, we had to figure, and so it was always passing the kumquat. So we had two people in the room, two people that I love dearly that wanted to also share some brief stories before we close. This is going to be our first edition because I think that there are many, these panelists all have a ton more stories. Calvin is coming on my corner next week. I always bring people on that have been influences in my life, and he was a huge one, which we'll talk about next week. But this is just the tip of the iceberg of the stories that this guy has, and next week you can hear about Angela Lansbury and George Hearn and all kinds of crazy things. But these two people that are in the room, I'm going to start with excuse me, the first of many of these. We're super excited. It's going to be so much fun. Hopefully these panelists will come back, as well as we'll have new ones to come and share incredible fun stories, because that's why we do what we do. Partly why is to have the thrill of live theater, whether it be watching this kind of stuff happen in the audience or making it happen on stage. I have a quick story, and then I'm going to throw it to David to do our final story, which is regional, but we have a production of Beauty and the Beast that, and it just goes to show, like, understudies and covers and stuff, which we've done a panel on, are so important. We had a matinee that randomly our Chip and our Lumiere didn't show up for. And so we had to, there was a girl who was a dresser who was super tiny, who I threw the Chip head on and said, "Get in the cart!" And she was like, okay. And so she had someone following her around, well, pushing her around, and then like following her with the book, telling her like the one line that Chip had in that scene or whatever. So that was like pretty foolproof. But with Lumiere, I was like, what are we gonna do? So there was a saint in our ensemble who is not understudy, and he played our Monsieur Dark in Act 2, which is the Maison de Lune part. And I was like, Dustin, could you come in the hallway for a moment? And he comes in the hallway, and I was like, so Dennis hasn't arrived, and we had already, like, we were at like 10 minutes to curtain, and I was like, so would you be willing to go on as Lumiere today? And it was the day his mother and his whole family had not seen the show yet, and they had come to see the show, and I did not know that. But and he was just like, without missing a beat, yep, sure, no problem. And so he got fit in. And this guy, by the way, our Lumiere was like maybe 6 feet, 6'1", and Dustin is 6'8", 6'7", 6'8". But luckily, the costume had these tall boots, and so the costume, which he was obviously not, it wasn't built for him, he went into it like somehow like a glove. And I and my friend Denise, who was on makeup on the show, ran around with a book, and I literally, all of Act 1, I was just like, you're entering from here, here's the point of the scene, hit these lines, and just do what you can. And all the while, we have this huge revolving castle that went up and down stage and turned around, and it was like literally a labyrinth. I'm like, okay, you're gonna enter up at this corner, but it's gonna turn while you're going, and you're gonna end up downstage, right? And it was just literally like coaching him. It was the most insane football game I've ever been a part of, and it was truly theater magic at its craziest. And in my curtain speech, I let the audience in to say, hey, this is what's happened. And they were so on board. And he did Be Our Guest without missing a lyric, without missing a beat, and killed it. Act 2 came, and both those actors showed up. For the sake of the show, which we won't even go into it. For the sake of the show, we ended up swapping everyone back the way they needed to go. And we brought them out at intermission, and they got a huge standing ovation, both the dresser and and Lumiere from the audience, because it was amazing. So anyway, David, close us out.
All right, I'm going to close you out with a story from my dearly departed friend Rick, and this is a story I think about every day. I think about Rick every day, but this story I think really is simple, and it encapsulates how ridiculous this world we're in. He was in the original production of Cats. He was young, but old. I think he said he was late 20s, maybe 30. And in the opening number, the cats crawl through the audience, and they have those like little masks on, and you know this, Calvin, and they're going through the audience, and they're like, da, 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 right? They're going in all the audience's faces, and everyone's just, oh, it's so magical, it's so wonderful. And so Rick, he's 30, and he's going through the audience, and he says he goes up to this guy who's sitting on the aisle in a business suit, and he's, doing his stuff to the guy. And the guy says very simply, he turns and he goes, "You're a grown man." And Rick was just like, and it's so perfect. Because sometimes you think, oh, I'm giving you this story, this T.S. Eliot moment of, and then somebody goes, "You're a 30-year-old in a cat suit." So "you're a grown man" is something I think about all the time. So,
I mean, how applicable to everything that we do in this business, and amen to it. You guys, please thank all these incredible artists who came to share their stories today. We will do this again. And so thankful to all of you. Thanks, David. You're the best co-host ever.
Thank you. Yes.
Love you.
You guys
all
are the
right,
best.
guys.